Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to do another little update on my training. I'll head over to Training Peaks and sort of show you what I've been up to over the past month or so since the last video. Before I go any further, as you know, Talk Fitness are sponsoring this training content, and they've actually just launched a brand new product, the 1-to-1 Proto products. So most of their normal gels are 2-to-1, fructose to maltodextrin, but these are 1-to-1. So you see probably a lot of the products advertised now. They're like 0.8-to-1 or 0.9-to-1. That's the ratio of fructose to maltodextrin, with all this kind of high carb stuff that's going around at the moment. But Talk have always gone with 2-to-1, which is kind of, to be honest, it's good when you're not trying to sort of smash out 120 plus carbs an hour. If you're just doing 50 or 60, that's more than adequate. So it's fine for most people. However, obviously the market is moving a bit, and they've introduced 1-to-1. And basically 1-to-1 allows you to get the most possible carbs in. I think a lot of brands do kind of have a 0.8-to-1 or 0.7-to-1 sometimes. And that's kind of quite generic, so they don't necessarily have the 2.1 and the 1.1s or the higher carbs. So yeah, basically this is Talk's take on it. Looking forward to get some of these. So I'll be using these for some of my higher carb intake sessions. But to be honest, I think the 2-to-1 is probably best for most of the stuff I do. However, if I'm smashing intervals or doing a race, I think 1-to-1 would be great. They do the gels and the energy drink. I'll be using those alongside all the kind of the bars and stuff I normally use. So I'll touch on that a little bit in the training video. Check them out. I'll put a link on screen. There's a discount for that stuff, and definitely worth trying. And there's loads of different flavors as well. Only 3 in the 1-to-1 stuff, but on the 2-to-1, there's loads of different gels. And I mean, I'm far from being bored of Talk stuff at the moment, and I'm smashing quite a bit at the moment when I'm training hard. So yeah, big thank you to Talk. So check out that stuff, and don't forget to click on the little link for a discount. Back to Training Peaks, and well, this is where I left it last time. I think I did the update on this Wednesday, and I was feeling it a little bit, and I think I did a little note here: nothing in the legs, just rest week required. That kind of I think I screwed up a little bit. I kind of, looking back in hindsight, I just pushed it a little bit too hard with like the intervals, and then kind of backing it up with threshold intervals the next day a couple of times in there, as you can see, and then the super threshold stuff, and then the sweet spot. And I think I started this sweet spot here, and I just had nothing in the tank really, so I just kind of knocked it on the head and came home. I've based, like last year I had a really good year in terms of fitness, and the results kind of were all right as well. So I based a lot of it on what I did last year. And I think I made the same mistake last year and essentially copied it and didn't learn from it. So I just sort of went a bit too hard when I started up in the intensity and just fried my legs and carried on trying to do the volume. I guess that's an absolute classic mistake. And I guess that's where the limit of being self-coached is. I guess sometimes you need a coach just to tell you to stop being an idiot, which I obviously don't have. So yeah, I kind of like screwed up a little bit. So I was building the CTL quite well. You can see on the right hand side here, I was doing those kind of fairly big weeks off the back of the Gran Guanchi at the end of January. But then I got sort of bogged in the middle around 118 CTL here, and didn't really progress as such. I was doing the intervals, but I just wasn't moving the kind of fitness numbers up. And then kind of just fried myself a bit here. Got a cold. Probably should have rested a bit more. I should have taken the rest week here in hindsight, but hindsight's golden. But I still did the training, and the numbers, they are important, but they're not the absolute be all and end all. So where I did that last video, so that was basically the first week of March. Basically, I was a little bit cooked. Probably should have rested the week before when I got a cold. Or I should have rested this week when I had a cold and not pushed through, and then sort of just been more consistent further up. But as it was, I just got a bit fried here. So I ended up having a few easier days, just ticking over, doing some endurance, a couple of hours. I went climbing for an hour and a half. As I said in the last video, I have started doing indoor rock climbing, bouldering. There's a new wall near me, which has only just opened just before Christmas, so I've been doing a lot of that. I find it really good for my sort of strength, and it's something different as well from cycling. And I'm getting better slowly but surely. But yeah, it's kind of quite nice just seeing the progress. But you progress quite quickly early, and then I've just been a bit the same for a while. But yeah, the last week actually, I'll come on to it later on. But I've had a bit of a rest, got a little bit skinnier, and now, funnily enough, I'm getting better at climbing too. So that's kind of fun. So this is where I left it off. Ended up essentially being a rest week. So the CTL dropped down a little bit, which was a bit frustrating. And then I basically started again. And I had planned to go for a hike with my friend. He's kind of into hiking and not really got anyone to do with it. And I'm pretty flexible with time. So we went to the Peak District. We hiked for 6 hours. I did an easy ride the day after because my legs aren't used to it. My legs were quite sore. The calves were quite sore, and I was limping around for a couple of days after. And then I just got back into the riding. So these super thresholds that I was doing before, I kind of progressed. So 3x8s, and then the sort of sprints at the end, and then a bit of a heat workout. And then the sweet spots, 4x20s. I know the sweet spots are just kind of a key thing, really. So yeah, did 4x20 there, and I'm getting a few little, you can see a little bit of rest and then hitting it hard again. Suddenly you make progression, and a climbing in there. I was using climbing for my strength here. I didn't do any squats and gym stuff in this week because I was pretty rinsed from the hike. And also hiking is basically doing kind of like single leg presses for ages when you're in the steep hills. So I did that 5-hour ride, just endurance, and then rest day, like a day completely off everything. Well, I say that, I've got a 3-year-old, so not really off everything, but not exercising at least anyway. And then I got onto these sweet spot bursts, so little over-unders, which they take me a while to get used to. So I was a bit tired after that. Another week heat workout and some stretching. This is just one of the Wahoo System yogas. So that was a pretty decent week, actually. So on the bike, it was 17 hours, but then another 6 hours hiking, plus the cross training. So yeah, kind of getting plenty in there. And then I was going to go to Battle on the Beach, which is a little event the next weekend. So basically, I don't really want to like taper into that because A, even if I do taper, I'm going to get my head kicked in. And B, you just end up losing fitness a bit. You can see here, I was 116 CTL. But then you end up racing and you just don't do the volume. So you do lose a little bit, which is frustrating. Again, not the be all and end all, but I do want to see that number gradually creeping up. So I did another endurance ride. I did the over-unders basically there. I think I kind of learnt my lesson a bit from overcooking it before. So I did the over-unders. I thought I'd do those just as a bit of a kind of opener, ready for the beach race, because essentially that's the kind of through and off effort you'd be doing on that kind of circuit. Then I did a 5-hour ride and some gym endurance. And then I did a Fat Max, which was, I'm sort of a key session for me with these long endurance rides. It was a pretty busy week, actually. Then I had to go and drive down to Mason Cycles to pick up my new bike. There's a video on the internet somewhere about that. And then I didn't want to go too hard in the run into Battle on the Beach, make myself overtired and make my life difficult. So I did these like medio build intervals. So yeah, a bit of like tempo, basically, a bit of medio, then kind of going through the stages, and then hitting sort of anaerobic threshold and a bit of heat. And then, the next day did the trip down to Wales. We actually went to Bike Park Wales before the race. That was great. Not really much in the way of riding, but just smashing down hills and getting an uplift. Good for skills, obviously gets your arms pumped. And just getting efficient on descents is key when you're doing off-road races. And then Battle on the Beach, had a nice sort of ride out in the day. So had the night TT. That wasn't the best. I just probably wasn't really sharp enough for it, to be honest. It was a bit late in the day and it had been a busy few days and a busy week. But it was a good hard hit out. So that's 50 minutes including the warm-up and a bit of a cool down. I think it was only about 20 minutes effort, if that. And then the race day, a bit of a warm-up, and then an hour and a half basically just hitting it. And you can see I was hitting all the sort of the little numbers here. That was quite good. It's like 18 or so hours on the bike, which was all right. And then I just backed it up. Monday, because we're in South Wales, I was down there with George Sales. We did almost 3 hours on the mountain bikes at Avon Argoed. So it was a good excuse to do some mountain biking, do a little bit of race. And that's quite good. And then I got some physio on the Tuesday. And then just sort of continued the little build, really. Dale's Divide was coming up. So that was a bit of a target that I put in there quite last minute, really. So I kind of wasn't sure if I was going to do it, and then about 2 weeks out I decided I would. So then this next section here, I decided to not to do too much of the like top end over unders and super threshold stuff, because it's going to be quite a long endurance effort at Dales Divide. So I was a little bit more specific, but I didn't really want to kind of taper. So I did those, you've seen these before, the threshold blocks at the end, 10-minute threshold blocks, with a bit of sort of media at the start, just to put some fatigue in your legs and then do threshold. So that was nearly 4 hours with 3x10 at the end and some heat after. Then I did like basically a 6-hour endurance ride. I think that was on my the bike I was going to use for Dales Divide. Then did a bit of an easy ride. So basically I normally do 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, but that didn't really work because I wanted to have a bit of a taper here. So I decided to do 2 days, then an easier ride. So it's not a full recovery day, but just ticking over and recovering a bit and then doing another block. So I did that, plenty of stretching in here. And then I did 4x20s, and yeah, the legs I was actually feeling really good here. So the couple of weeks before kind of was paying off now. So yeah, I could really feel the form starting to come along, and I was starting to feel stronger, especially in my endurance rides. I was feeling stronger. So I was feeling like relatively confident going into Dales Divide. And then I did a fat max, and I was going to leave it at that and have like a 3 or 4 day taper, but I was feeling so good I decided to do another 4 hours on that Monday, and then taper. I did some climbing as well. And then, yeah, as always, when you feel good, I got a bit of a cold. So it was a bit hit and miss whether it was going to come full on into Dales Divide or not. It'd been floating around the household. So yeah, it caught me just before the race. But I had some goals for the race, and it wasn't kind of result driven. Basically, I wanted to get around. It started on Friday morning at 8:30. I wanted to get done by Saturday night midnight, because I said I'd be at my mum's for Easter dinner on Sunday. So it was a bit of a tight turnaround. So I rode it fairly consistently, and I was using it really as training. I think that's probably not fair to everyone else and to the event. It's not an easy event at all, but my main goal was just to get the miles in and be really consistent rather than really chase a result. And I rode on my Mason ISO, which is like a drop bar kind of gravelly mountain bike with 2.4 inch tires. Probably was a mistake. I had ridden the Eastern Loop before, and I thought I knew it would be slightly slower than a mountain bike, but it was slower than I expected, and I rode quite fast tires, and the weather was awful, and there was a massive storm, so there was a few muddier sections where I definitely lost time. And because I was on GRX great brakes, I didn't have sintered pads for them, but I would have used sintered on my mountain bike, so I lost a bit of time because I smashed through my pads on the first day, then I had to sort of waste 15 minutes replacing them. So yeah, I made that decision, so that's all on me. But yeah, it was quite good fun. So I reckon I probably would have been an hour or so quicker on the mountain bike. But I mean, like I said, I achieved the goal of finishing just before midnight, or I can't remember if it was just before or just after midnight. Got smashed by Storm Dave. And actually I managed to avoid that cold as well. It kind of was on the edge of whether it was going to get really bad or not, and it didn't. So yeah, I was quite thankful for that, really. So I did that, basically fell into the van at about midnight, after, what's that, like just under 40 hours riding time. Then woke up at 8 o'clock after about 6-7 hours sleep and drove home, had Sunday dinner. And then Monday we were going to Mallorca on a family holiday. So up again at 4 a.m. on Monday for a 7 a.m. flight. So that was a bit of an intense 3 or 4 days, really. I mean, fatigue can come from things other than riding your bike, and doing all that travel straight after the Dales Divide was a little bit intense, but I survived. And then also it meant that I was a bit more chilled out, and a lot of swimming pool time and beach time. So yeah, everyone was pleased that I wasn't just obsessed about riding my bike all the time. But I did kind of do some riding, but I just did a couple of hours. I planned nothing, but my plan was just to kind of get going again, really, while I was in Mallorca. Enjoy the sunshine. It's nice to ride a fast road bike with fast wheels on fast roads. We stay in the western end of the island in Peguera, so you're right in the hills straight away. They're not big mountains. I couldn't really, go out for like 7-8 hours and get the big mountains further on the other end of the island. So I was sort of up and down the smaller hills, but I live in the flattest part of England, and the race I'm targeting is the Hellenic Mountain Race. So I just wanted time in the hills. So I was basically just trying to get like 2,000 meters on, a 3 or 4 hour ride, which is achievable out there. And actually I was going all right. So yeah, I did like a 2-hour ride, just fairly steady, did a 3-hour ride fairly steady, then I did another 4.5. Then the last day I was getting quite tired by this point, but you know, you're there last day, so I basically, and the weather was going to turn as well, so I went out and I decided I'd just do some medium efforts, but I do it really low cadence on basically the big chain ring on the climbs. So pick 2 climbs around 20 minutes and then just roll the gear. I find that works quite well, and when I'm a bit fatigued, it's an easier effort to do. So yeah, I basically was trying to back up Dale's Divide and keep the CTL quite high. So it finished on 136 after Dale's Divide after that week, and that was like 43 hours basically riding, or 42 hours riding that week. And then I didn't drop off too much. I did 16 hours riding in Mallorca, which is pretty decent considering, and I felt like I finished tired, but I felt like I was recovering and getting stronger. So for me, that was a bit of a bonus. And basically that kind of specific Dale's Divide, that's a specific, it wasn't a training session, it was an event, but I was riding it to prepare for Hellenic. So I didn't have the massive taper, so probably carried a little bit of fatigue into Divide, but then I backed it up, and that for me is a really good sign. And I was feeling really good the week before Dale's Divide as well. So I figured I should do another test, because I was feeling like the form is starting to come. I'm not 100% where I want to be yet, but it was feeling good. I was feeling like the power was going up in my sort of longer endurance rides, if not maybe not the thresholdy type rides, but you know, that's not what I'm trying to train for. So I did another inside test. Now these are the tests, I mentioned them earlier in the year. You get all this really cool data. So basically it's 2 20-second seated sprinted efforts, then it's a 3-minute absolutely full gas effort and a 6-minute full gas effort, and then you get loads of kind of data, and you get your zones and really good useful information to work from. So yeah, a few people asked in the last video, so you need an inside affiliated coach. So Ben Thomas Coaching, he coached me for a few years, and actually a lot of these kind of workouts that I do are kind of I've used from him, and kind of tweaked a little bit to suit me in the races I'm doing a bit more. So basically he runs the tests for me and gives me all the data to work from, which seems to be working really well. So yeah, I did that inside test, and actually the numbers from the test were about the same as they were in January, maybe even slightly lower, 2 or 3 watts lower. However, I'm 2.5 kilos lighter than I was then. I think I was 75 kilos when I did that. Now I'm 72.5 when I weighed myself on the morning of the test. So I've leaned up, and I've basically not lost much power on those tests, and as a result, basically I was about 10 or so, just over 10 watts higher on pretty much all the zones set in that, which I'm pretty pleased with, and I felt like that was the case. So yeah, I'll probably do another test just before the Hellenic race, actually, because I feel like I'm only just starting to really ramp up. So the next next 6 weeks till Hellenic, I'm gonna be quite aggressive with the training and the intervals. Not too much different to what I've done, but a lot more kind of the over-under sweet spot bursts and things like that. So yeah, that's coming up, but that's where I'm at the moment. So yeah, things are progressing quite nicely. So I did the inside test, and then I backed it up with a 3 by 30 minutes sweet spot, and yeah, again the numbers were good. And then today I've just done like an endurance ride, 5 hours. Legs were feeling it a little bit, to be honest, and then I did some gym after. But yeah, just getting back into it, and the aim is to be really consistent between now and Hellenic. So that is pretty much that's my update for now. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that's useful. Just give us a shout in the comments if there's any questions. And yeah, I've got another video. The next video I'm going to do a video on layering the clothing layers I used for Dale's Divide, because quite a lot of people asked about that as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one.